my background academically and professionally is a little unorthodox. I've always been very creative, and I've always designed as a freelancer. But I finished with my degree in psychology and ended up working as a flight attendant for 3 years. During this time, my love for psychology grew because I was understanding people, different cultures. It was fantastic. I started to understand I'm creative, but I had this logical side. So once I really started to understand what design is as far as communication and understanding people, behaviors, I decided that was what I wanted to do. I approach everything with an understanding of how we behave and how we interact. I use psychology in my research for any kind of design project, and adding on to that, sociology, our group interaction. So especially with this project, for my thesis, I wanted to understand how we interact in a physical space and how we perceive physical space individually. So my research for my thesis began as kind of a discovery into wayfinding signage systems. I was really interested and I wanted to understand more about map making, designing a map, designing a tool for orientation. I found it fascinating. I started to understand that for me, there's this incongruency between internal wayfinding systems and external wayfinding systems. Internal in the sense of a hospital or an airport, and then if you're in a city, it is also considered a wayfinding system, making your way from the train station to the Duomo. So I started looking more into how do we organize an environment in our own mind. You have, for example, emotions, affective states, experiences, and all of these combine together to create what's called a place attachment. Basically, that's your impression of a place. That's your feeling that you really can't explain. So if we're in a physical urban environment, have you ever thought about what is the significance of this physical space for me, and how does it differ to the person right next to me? Are there cultural differences in how we perceive a physical space? Are there age differences? I really wanted to understand what does a 3D place look like for me personally, without having to read a map or without a map telling me how I should read a place. So I started developing what we've termed as blob maps. A blob is something without form. It's organic. It's a shape that you really can't describe. And that's exactly what physical space is. So I made these maps out of clay. I just threw clay onto a map, and the result was fantastic. It was really fun. So the first time I asked another person to make a blob map, I had expected the same results, and to my surprise, it was completely different. Not just from the shapes that were made or where they were placed on a paper, on a map, but also proportions and references. So what is a blob map? What's the significance of it? What can we do with it? How do you read it? What I've learned from my research and from what I've seen actually playing with clay and watching other people do the same, it's really, really insightful and interesting to see how we use something that is 3D, something that we can use with our hands, putting it on top of something that is 2D. So at the end of the day, a blob map is a tool. It's a way of understanding how we interact with the physical space. What is our interpretation of that space? How do we use it? And showing that using our hands with something that's 3D on a 2D plane.